talking about? What you talking about? What you talking about? What you talking about, huh?
We want your soul.
It really is a time when all of us have got to start talking louder than ever. The rapid speed of, if you like, globalization. The world government, world army, world central bank, world currency, world microchip population.
Don't be afraid.
No, be afraid. Be very afraid.
The important thing is to know where they want to take us.
They have to destroy the dollar, destroy the pound, destroy the old order while they've been building the new world order, this technological enslavement system.
The FBI is taking on $1 billion project to gather fingerprints, palm patterns, even digital pictures of faces. Eventually, it could expand to include iris patterns, face shape patterns, scars, even information about how you walk and talk. It's called biometrics.
We want your soul.
You can't handle the truth.
Time to Howl at the Wolves. That's Saturday night, November 29, 2025 or 2025. Keith Temple, what did they say at the Bilderberg Group?
As you like it.
Very well done. In absence of Adam Earth, he shall be back, I think, next Saturday night. Dr. Brooks Agnew, we're still trying to raise him. He was scheduled to be on tonight, so he might be joining us in just a moment. Tito Scott Hare, he's going to be back as soon as he can. He's still nursing that injury, but as soon as he can get back, he shall be with us. Longtime guest. She has not been on in a little bit, but she has been a staple of the show for quite some time. She is a former Navy intelligence officer, best-selling author of the great, incredible book, An American in the Basement. She is the one and only Amy Waters Yarsinske. How are you?
Good. How are you?
We're 5 by 5. That's radio terms.
Yes.
It's great to have you back on again, Amy.
Yes, and this is the first video appearance, I think.
Yeah. And you're looking good. I love the ambience in the studio. It rocks.
Yeah, this is I have a huge office, and I'm just showing a little shadow of the office behind me here. It's so dark in here.
It's ambience. It's good. It's good.
It is.
Of course, Keith Temple is in studio with us. You heard earlier, and Amy, we're not trying to make you hungry and all that shit.
Yeah, that looks pretty good. You did a good job there.
It's Guy Fieri's bacon tomato pasta.
Nice. Very nice.
And the words don't do it justice. I don't know. I'm the most blessed person around, and be on an awesome show and have an awesome dinner with awesome people.
That's great.
Amy, we want to shoot the S about a lot of stuff tonight, but do you want to break that? Keith, let's toast very quickly.
Hey, always.
Some good vino, Amy.
Well, that's important. I had some earlier with my turkey soup.
Nice.
My mom likes to make tacos out of the leftover turkey. So,
Oh yeah,
but
she's
a soup person too.
we've had a little of everything so far.
That's what happens with leftovers, right? Thanksgiving leftovers just become a hodgepodge.
Well, this is true, and this is the first time since my husband and I first met, that 36 years ago, that we've been alone for a holiday. So it turns out the butcher gave us a very large turkey compared to what we ordered. So I'm thinking, okay, we're going to be eating turkey for a while.
Falling asleep early.
Yeah.
All that stuff. Amy, I don't know when you want to break this, but we get to break news on this show. But, every once in a while we scoop Alex Jones, which is really hard because we're on Saturday nights and all that shit. But we've done it. We've done it twice before. We've
Recently.
Well, I earlier when I talked to you, I wanted to make sure I talked to my co-producer and to my partner, and he and his wife, who's also a producer, they agreed that it would be fine. And it's something that we've been involved in now for months, 10 months plus for script, and it's now pre-production. But we're doing a movie off American in the Basement, and but it's the way that the movie is being done that's important. It tells a story, a lot of the things that are not in the book. So I was just talking to Keith about this and referenced it a little bit. I mean, there's things that happen that are not in the book because you can't do that. I don't ever put myself into a story, but I certainly there are a lot of things that went on that are very interesting behind the scenes that enabled me to be able to do it. But I'm co-producing the movie with a very experienced Hollywood co-producer and director. Um, so we have we will start filming in about the spring, and we have about a 35-day shooting schedule. Um, but it's a very the story is taken from my perspective as an investigator. So the lead of the movie is playing me basically.
Oh, Amy, all I can say is this has been a theme that I've had with Chad, and Chad's had for a decade before I've kind of joined us. You know, we're all truth seekers, and we're all of the mindset of give us the accurate truth and
Yeah,
let us digest and move forward. And I'm so interested in tonight's show with you and your perspective on things and such. So I'm just honored, and I just want to give you a thank you. Thank you so much for trying to shed the truth, the light on situations, because I think the
right.
American people deserve it.
They do, and they need to learn the entire rolling backstory to it as well. I mean, you have the next book I'm working on, and it'll be out alongside the movie. It has to be done soon because we've got to package all this together. But you have, in essence, you have a story that starts decades before there was a Scott Spiker, and he's the beneficiary of the bad things that rolled up into the Gulf War and the template that was already set in motion. I mean, nothing that happened to him was anything that didn't happen to people in Vietnam. It happened to people before that, and you just keep going further and further back. You find more of the ways that it started. There's always one of the chapters I have is called the setup in this new book, and it's because there's an entire template that's being used over and over and over again, and I actually have the documents that show that.
Very well, Amy. Before we continue, I want to bring my other one of my other co-hosts on. He is here to the party.
I see. Hello.
He like yourself, a best-selling author many times over, the most interesting man in the world, physicist, and a great American, and a longtime guest on the show, and has become a co-host earlier this year, and he does a great job. Dr. Brooks Agnew, welcome. You're on with Amy Waters Yarsinske.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Um,
So
Brooks, always great having you on, my friend. Amy, why don't you do this for everybody since you haven't been on for a little bit?
yes.
Just paint the story of your book in American in the Basement.
Right.
The official story of what happened to Scott Spiker is as patriotic as Dick Cheney is his
Yeah,
patriotism. The official
about that much. Yeah, we can discuss the other name there in a few minutes. No, January 17, 1991, of course, and Scott was in the first wave of F-18s that night and strike package, and he uh, he gets taken down as it turns out, and I know that Keith and I were just talking about his VA-35 friend, but the 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 data from that night, the things that Spear, the Navy, that was a special collection effort they did, is in order to be able to inform next strike packages what errors were made, what not to do again, what packages were out there, threat assessments, that sort of thing. And Spear had collected on this too, and having spoken to the admiral that was in the within the communication that night with this mission, they knew what happened to Scott Spiker from the start. This is not something that was a surprise. And they scrambled F-18 investigators. These are the guys who go out of crash sites right away from the United States. They flew them over, got them onto the America, not the Saratoga, and they got everybody onto a different carrier. And when they got on board, there were CIA was on board by that time. They'd flown Spock Anderson over to that carrier. They had everybody on the carrier. They knew they had a pilot down. They knew that he had gotten out of the aircraft. We're the ones who eventually flipped that aircraft over and got the components out of it because he was on a mission along with Bob Stumpf that night from the other squadron. And they had a special package loaded, and that all came out. All this came out by people talking about what went on that night and the documentation that followed. Later on, you get Scott evading on the ground. He stays on the ground. He's with Bedouins. I know people have a hard time understanding that, but we did have E&E networks, escape and evasion networks, prior to the Gulf War, and he was lucky to find friendly ones. But they still, the mystery of this is especially to the people who were working for us in the Qatari side of things and in the Saudi side of things, who were CIA asset. They could not understand going to visit him with these Bedouins. This is the whole chapter called the Falcon Hunter. So Keith, you got to get to that chapter. The Falcon Hunter was incredulous, and I knew who this was. I wasn't going to say anything about that. The sense of that is you just don't do that. I knew who he was. I knew who the other folks were involved. There was an ambassador in between us, talking, liaising with this whole thing. And then he gets taken, and about 4 years in the desert, not quite 4, he gets taken by Saddam. We sent up every red flag you could possibly send up by sending an ICRC mission over there, which really just had a bunch of special forces and other people from DIA and DPMO on board. So that was a giveaway that we were looking for not an airplane, but we were looking for the pilot. And so Saddam ended up getting him. I got a call. I was on vacation. This is one of the things that'll kind of play out a little bit in the movie. I was actually on vacation with my family, and I'm at the homestead, and I get a phone call on the line. The operator's like, "Can you hold?" Basically it was Langley calling. I was like, "Okay, you guys are gonna have to go down to the pool, do whatever you're gonna go do, because I'm not gonna be with you for a while." And it was a friend of mine, and he explained to me. He said, "I don't know how you did it." He said, "But there are photographs to go along with everything you have in the book, including Saddam murdering all the Bedouins who he told them before the war got started." He said, "You take in a coalition pilot, an American pilot in particular, and you're going to be dead," because he was going to kill them all, and he did. And we have the pictures of that. But we had the pictures already of his ground to air signals. We had all that stuff, and the fact that he tried every way possible to get rescued, and nobody came. You had and it just, the worst part is that, and this comes out with what I'm doing now with this other project, is that you end up with, we know that we listen, and we know what's going on at all times. And I've actually got a couple of the agencies on board in this next book saying how much they know, where everybody is, where they are, who's got them, how long they've been there. And going back to Vietnam, they knew that. And they actually say this. They've actually got that documented now. So they knew where he was. They knew what was going on. They've always known.
Amy, just real quick so I just want, that way listeners who are not familiar with your book, An American in the Basement, we can say tonight that there is a movie by it's going to be a pretty incredible film, and
it's
being worked on right now. But just to let them know very quickly, as far as Captain Michael Scott Spiker, he was on the Saratoga. at the inception of the Gulf War, and he was painted as the first casualty of the war. And
Prematurely. Yeah.
yeah, so what I'm just trying to let everyone know, understand what
Well,
we're.
yeah, he was a premature, and Cheney's the one who did it.
Yeah.
And when you get declared that way, nobody's looking and nobody asked. And so when we had very similar things happen in Vietnam, where somebody was declared KIABNR, or just, oh, they've got to be dead, and so they move on. And then when they comes to the peace accords, they really weren't asking for people. They were letting the Vietnamese provide the list. Well, they were holding back. And one of the documents that's very important to pay attention to from Vietnam is the 1205 document, the Soviet GRU document that was discovered by Dr. Stephen Morris. And I've dogged that thing down to, finding out exactly what was going on there. And it is really something. And I've been told by insiders in the that work these issues to pay attention to that, because not enough attention's been paid to it, and it set things in motion that are relevant today. And if we don't nip this, it's going to continue on going forward. So if you lose somebody today, you're going to have the same problems, and that we see them doing the same, using the same techniques, the prolongment of holding back, overclassifying documents just to make them very hard to get. And so it's coming down to the same things happening to Spiker case, happened to other cases that I've seen and worked in the past. And it's just important to keep that in mind. Working the Spiker case was very difficult, and one of the things about it that was a challenge, and it is a learning experience the entire time, was I was mentored by someone who'd done this before I was born, looking for people like this, and was a pioneer really in the personnel recovery side. But there are certain things you see that somebody who is missing is trying to tell you, and there are markers they leave. There are things that they do that tell you that's them, and that's why we had a Task Force 75, and that's why we went looking for him. We were just too late. Forensically, he wasn't probably killed until about 2005.
I'm with you, Amy. I just wanted to, for the people hearing this the first time, I want them to understand that Scott Spiker was basically the poster boy for the first casualty of the Gulf War, and through 3 presidential administrations, they knew he was there. So 91 to 2003, at least, with the invasion of the start of the Iraq War, they knew he was there. And the point of all of this, as far as this book and American in the Basement and the movie coming out, is the fact that Scott Spiker was alive that entire time, and we knew he was there. And I know SEAL teams.
He was very ill, and
SEAL teams wanted to extract him, and they were told no, over and over. So it comes down to politics as far as leaving him there.
Well, it does. It comes down
Brooks,
to.
I want to get you in here when you want to get in.
Well, it comes down to some people doing some very bad things too, and I've found that too in the process of doing this other book, and so I have that documented as well. You're not meant to find some of these documents, and if you don't look in the right terms, or you look in what you think are the right terms, but they're not for finding that document, you would never see it. But a lot of times these archives, the National Archives or the Library of Congress, they will double truck a message traffic, for example. And they'll put something on the left side of the page, and you can tell that it's not a message traffic, and it's got something to do with a totally different document. And in one case, a couple weekends ago, I found this document that was a smoking gun document that you just can't even. I read the thing to my publisher because he said, "You're blowing my mind right now," because no one was meant to find the document that I found. I found the tail end of the document, but it had enough information for me to go find the rest of it. But I never would have found it because I was looking under a totally different search term. And I sat there until I found it. And I found the whole 6 pages of somebody within DIA ranting and raving about the fact that all the families of these missing people were all his enemies. They were his enemy. He defined them as the enemy. And he actually says that he hid the documentation. He classified it first. When he thought it was too close, he just classify it. And you do it as a working document. So if you classify something as a working document, you don't have to show it to anybody because it's not final product. So you hide it. But then when he had enough time, he was hiding documents about missing people all over the country. And he was pigeonholing it everywhere. And he was doing this on purpose because he didn't want anybody to find out that we had live Americans in Southeast Asia. We had them in Laos, we had them in North Vietnam, we had them in the Soviet Union. And he was hiding every time he got anything. He tried to hide the 77-page document that talks about Korea and what happened with the Americans taken to Korea, from Korea to the Soviet Union. And they were taken through gateways in China. And he talks about hiding this document. Now, I got a copy of the document, and I have the names. But he hid this document for as long as he could hide that document until he retired. And I have to say that one of the interesting things that will come of this is that they need to find out where he put all these documents. This is not a problem just isolated to this subject matter. I mean, apparently it's gone on. I think Tulsi Gabbard's had her work cut out for her trying to find things that reply to other cases that are going on right now, because they pigeonhole the document someplace in a warehouse, and you got to find out where they put it, or if they didn't destroy it.
Brooks, what you thinking?
Well, I know there's a lot of cover up that goes on, and this cover up usually has to do with the corruption of trying to cover somebody official's wrongdoing. And in this case, I mean, I like it, I respect it, but in this case, the evidence is too old. There's nothing we can do about it. All this stuff's water under the bridge, to me.
It would be, except that they're using the same playbook every time this happens, and they're still using the same person's playbook in DIA and DPMO and DPAA now. They're still using the same thing with the families. It would be, and if it's interesting enough to you, the person who did this had been involved in the issue from 1971 all the way through his retirement in 1996, and he left them with this template, and they're still using it. And they're still using it down to the identification of remains, which really isn't necessarily true. They're not telling you where the person died or how they died. They're just saying, oh, we found remains and this looks like it could be. But then they're providing the dental records. The government's providing the records to match. It's not being done in a neutral setting where you can actually be assured that this is what happened and this is who the person is. And in the documentation search here, I'm 450,000 words into this book. And there is something on every page of this book that is just unbelievable how bad it is.
I see it. I mean, we see it almost every single day. We look at what's going on in Somalia, not Somalia. Yeah, Somalia, Minnesota. You know,
but I
hundreds of millions of dollars being stolen, and nobody is going to jail.
Well,
nobody's to jail, nobody's being deported, nobody's resigning, and we're sick of it.
And I think that everyone needs to be sick of this thing going on with. You're not going to get anybody serving in the military again if they can't be assured that you're not going to do the best you can to go get them.
That's right.
You know, there's too. They don't talk about it. Nobody talks about it. They don't tell anybody about this, and it just happens. And then you're just left behind, and that's just inexcusable. But it's the same. Literally, it was written in documentation that this is the template we're using to do this.
Sure.
And I have the template, and they're still using it.
Well, Amy, I have a couple of questions, and before I say that, is first thing I want to reiterate is thank you. Thank you for being a legitimate investigative journalist.
Right on.
I mean, that's more important. I mean, that's the overarching theme of
and I cite and double cite everything.
Right. And I want to ask a question. What is your motive? What is your drive to do this? I mean, I know you were, a former intel officer, and and that, but there has to be something in your character, your background, your experience that is, because you could walk away from, I mean, maybe you can't because of your character, but I'm saying there are people that could walk away from this and say, you know what, there's just nothing I can do, and I'm going to go enjoy my retirement or my next career or whatever the issue is. What's driving you to bring the truth forward?
Well, I'm not somebody's gonna walk away from it. Nobody's running towards this bonfire, and it's I told Chad today. I said, first of all, here's the thing. And I have a co-producer who is a retired Marine officer, combat, Fallujah, the whole deal. And he wouldn't walk away from it either. And the commitment he had to help me with getting this really getting this story beyond a book. Unfortunately, people are not everyone's a reader. Not saying that's a bad thing, but not everybody's a reader. But they need a visual, and they need to understand what goes on in this kind of thing, and what you have to overcome to get there. And if you're, I told Chad, if you're a family member or you were involved in a combat action of this nature, or you're involved as a congressional member of any kind with this kind of story, you cannot write that book because you've already biased yourself in certain ways. You can't do it. And when you do it and you try to sell that to people, they don't understand, because they are already looking at you as the grieving parent or husband, wife, or as a congressional with an axe to grind somewhere, in the process. It's political to them. And I've lived that enough, having to testify and talk to people like that. And some of them I like, but as people, but I think that they all still have something going on there in the background. And then if you're in the military and you're trying to understand this kind of thing in a certain way, you got to be careful. But for me, answering the question, I've never backed off of anything in my entire life, and I've never backed away from helping somebody who can't help themselves. And that's what you have to do here. I mean, these guys who go missing, they can't help themselves anymore, but you're supposed to help them. And if you're not out there doing that, then I don't know what the purpose of some of these agencies are, the intelligence services or anything else, because that should be your sacred mission. That should actually come first. I'm sorry, but
Right.
You put them there, you ordered them there, you go fix it. And you tell, like, the President Trump would not hesitate to say, if he knew you had somebody missing, I want my guy back.
Yes.
If I don't get him back, you're going to get a V2 bomber in your back door, because I want my guy back. And that's the kind of person you have to have in leadership to do this effectively. We've had presidents of the United States. One did it twice. Eisenhower left behind people twice.
Yes, he did.
And then again as president. He did it twice. And
20,000 Americans, by the way, at the end of World War II.
yeah, upwards. There's more than that involved, and they ended up going from the CBI and the Chinese Burma Theater, the Pacific Theater, and as well as the European Theater, and the template that the Russians used for chemical, biological, and nuclear experimentation came from Unit 731. When they got into the war late, they're the ones who took that facility, and they actually used the architectural plans and the regiments to test against humans from that facility. They captured all that and did it, and they used it on us. They were using it on Korea and Cold War and Vietnam War POWs. The whole thing. All this came out in hearings that nobody got to hear. I mean, they classify some of the depositions. They don't want people to hear. Joe Douglas, who was a long-term DIA analyst, probably the best they ever had. He was when he died. That they came and they trucked all his files away. He was going to give them to a school, and they came with a truck. Said they were the people from the school, and the school had nobody coming to his house. They came and took all of his files because he knew about this stuff from the Czech general who defected. I mean, it's stuff like that. I mean, but I personally, I've never backed away from anything, and you can't. because somebody out there needs help, and you just don't know. Some of these guys from Vietnam were born in the 40s, and by the time they went missing in 72, 73, you never know. I actually have one case actually 2 cases in this book that are provable that they were alive up until they died, and one of them died in 2009, and the other one died before that.
Amy,
And there were U.S. government people in contact with them all the way through, trying to get them out of where they were. They were actually living in the highlands with a tribal group after they got free from their captors, and they were protected by all the young people and all the people in the village. But uniforms scare the crap out of them, so they never would come. You could be a traffic cop in one of these places, where they were coming down to see the Americans coming to see them, and they would stay up and hide because no uniforms, can't see uniforms.
Amy, I need to thank you. It was Major General Jeffrey Colt.
Yes.
Amy gave me some information today that helps out big time. That I pass on to Charlie Strange about.
He wrote the after action on Extortion 17 just to fill that in for everybody listening. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, our listeners are very familiar with Extortion 17, and so it's Jeffrey Colt that wrote the after action report, and he obviously didn't buy the official story either.
He did not. No.
So that's huge news. And as I was telling you earlier, with the grand jury in Fort Pierce, Florida, all this trickle down is coming. So eventually, there's just a lot more truth going to be coming out, as long as President Trump and continuing with hopefully J.D. Vance, the truth comes out. Like you said, Tulsi Gabbard, she does have her work cut out for her. And
yes,
Brooks, let me bring you into this, because we can transition to a lot of topics. I want to know what's on Brooks's mind, and we can all shoot the S about a lot of stuff. But I think, and Amy and I were discussing earlier this morning over the phone with the NSA listening, and just us and the NSA. But I am not a pessimist right now at all with this administration and what they're doing. There's a lot of work to be done, but I think there's hope in getting the truth out about stuff we've been talking about thus far. It's gonna take a little time, but it's on the agenda, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, that's good. I mean, it's going to have a lot of need a lot of time for it to travel, get things to travel through and work their way through the system. But there are a lot of markers and things that are coming up that they're going to have to chase down. And frankly, there's several things here going on now that are relevant to what went on in Vietnam and what are going on now with relationships we're trying to have with different countries. I mean, I think that the biggest thing was in Vietnam, everybody here on this program would know that the big thing was North Vietnamese wanted recognition for the country. They wanted trade relations. They wanted all that. They wanted the package. They were never going to be China to fill in any gaps in Southeast Asia. That just was never going to happen. And we went ahead and we did it anyway, but we're still trying to make these kind of relationships happen in other parts of the world. And these are other bad actors in other parts of the world that we're trying to have these things go on with, and we need to stop. They've taken our people too over time. If you think you can be nice with the Iranians, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. They've done. They use surrogates to do a lot of their dirty work all over the world. But the worst part is they'll take our people and then they'll trade them off to one of the former Soviet stands, so that they have plausible deniability that they had the person in their country in the first place. And that's the bad part. And there's certain countries you're not going to be able to fix this way, and we need to make sure we treat them as the aggressor or as the enemy that they are. They don't deserve those relations or anything else close to it.
Well, Brooks, I'm trying to get you in here. I mean, listen, Amy, there's, for example, a lot of stuff going on. So Zelensky is losing his entire cabinet.
He is. He sent one of them off he didn't like to the front, actually. I saw that, and the guy was like, I guess he gave him a choice. You can go to the front, or I can, do you in right here. Send him to the front. So that guy's gone.
Brooks?
That's exactly what happened.
Mhm.
And that's what's happening to all of Zelensky's successors, let's put it that way, or
Yep.
potential successors.
Or challengers, all of his challengers.
Right,
Anybody says
He either
boo to
jails
him.
them or sends them to the front. And I actually heard the news media today say, well, somebody on the news, Russia's lost over 1 million men. Their economy is decimated. Russia is losing this war so badly. They're barely making any progress, taking Ukraine. Ukraine has successfully defended its borders and pushing the Russians back and blah, blah, blah. They totally misread. What they did is they saw what was happening on the ground, but
Yeah.
they interpreted it as the Russians losing ground. And they don't listen to this program because we have clearly stated on this program every Saturday night for a couple of months now that Russia, Putin, is not fighting for land. If he
No.
wanted land, he would take it. He's fighting for people.
Yeah.
That's what he's fighting for. So when he, lobs a couple of missiles in and ends up hitting some apartment buildings, it's retaliation.
Yeah.
Because the Ukrainians for literally 11 years now have been shelling ethnic Russians in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Yes, they're Ukrainian people. Well, it's Ukrainian land, but it is Russian territory and has been for hundreds of years.
Yes.
So what's going on with Victoria Nuland and her Azov battalion trying to wipe these people out? Russia has taken the territory that they want to take, and that's it. They're not trying to take over all of Ukraine. All they're trying to do is keep these 5 states free.
Yep.
And as long as Ukraine stays back away, Russia doesn't advance. Now the news media is interpreting that as well. Russia's out of steam. They're out of gas. That's not the case at all. They've done exactly what they said they were going to do and no more. And, any peace plan that calls for Russia to give back land is utterly ridiculous because they won.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and the corruption is consuming Zelensky at a pace that most people, it's been there the whole time, but it's just gotten to be more obvious now that's being reported, and it's bad.
If he wants to enjoy his mansions in Florida and Southern California,
yeah,
he needs to quit. He needs to resign and go away.
He does. He does, indeed.
I continue to say motive matters. And the issue is whether or not it's Zelensky in Ukraine or Putin in Russia, or whether or not it's the U.S. and Iraq or whatever. That's kind of where I come back with. And so, my follow-on question, Amy, to you, first question being, what is your motive? What is your drive in being an investigative journalist into this issue? Is what is the American intelligence motive for having a story and not leveling and telling the truth? Because I think that's the theme of the show.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, that's a good question. I explore this a lot in this new book. Obviously, I'm looking at. You look at the there's a whole cabal of, there are many issues to separate them. You have the military intelligence services on the ground, but then you have the most important ones would be the ones in theater that would be reporting. Say you have NSA trapping messages. They're trapping that information. They're trapping your communications. They do that. They can listen to things all the way down to a gun emplacement and tell you what everybody's talking about. I mean, that's just, they have a sophistication. That's what I'm talking about. They've been able to listen like that for decades. And one of the primary facilities they used to have was Vent Hill in Northern Virginia. It's now the FAA facility. It was a big farm. They could listen to they during World War II. They could listen to the Japanese making decisions about things, and from that particular location, that's how good it was for them. And they listen and they trap information. It's what you do with it once you get it. You know, there is a there are many cases in which the CIA will be brought in, but DIA has been inserting itself many times over, and they have been in this particular case as well as the CIA. Interestingly enough, I found out, and this I was taught by the best in this particular area, but in imagery interpretation, um, CIA and DIA didn't have anybody qualified for that. I don't know how many people didn't know that. They had MPIC, you know, inside the CIA, but they had a lot of conflicts with that during they weren't even looking for it. And so you had guys putting down ground to air signals as far back as Vietnam. They'd been taught to do it before they got over there, and nobody was looking. So if you want to ask yourself how relevant this is, the last traps that they were looking at from guys who were missing now for, let's see, some of them almost 30 years at that point, 1992, 1995, 1998, ground to air signals using their code. Air Force, because Joint Personnel Recovery Agency has the Air Force codes. They now have the Navy ones and the other ones as well, but they had the codes, and they could actually match those codes to a person. And until that person is proven to be dead, they maintain that as a classified information scenario in their library. And so if you're looking at how these groups are talking or not talking, they'll try to snow a congressional panel and say, oh, well, we say that's not what that is. Well, it turns out you have nobody qualified to read it in the first place or collect it even. And then you've got the NSA, and they're not necessarily sharing or maintaining everything they should maintain. And they're not sharing with, if they are sharing with DIA, the DIA was hiding the information they shared. That went on too. That was another thing that went on. They had transfers of American POWs going on in Laos, and the NSA had the traffic. And then everybody in the room that trapped the traffic at Vent Hill was told to stay in the room. It was never going to leave the room. And they weren't going to go get them. And nobody was going to do anything. And so actually in the congressional hearings in 92, when they had a guy from NSA being deposed, he had a classified and a declassified debriefing, and they wanted him really bad. The investigators who did his briefing said, we wanted, they get him into this thing. They're lawyers, so they know how to get him into the, they're in a criminal case. They got him all the way down. They necked him down to this thing. They keep introducing, as an example, pieces of evidence in front of him and ask him if he knows what they are. And this is all getting back to this one whole set of messages that he had his name and his handwriting on. But he'd actually told everyone who saw anything about an American POW in Laos to purge the files. And he signed it. And so he was denying the entire thing all the way up until the point where they got him in the last 5 or 6 documents in which he says, they show him his own handwriting and his own documentation. He said, well, what do you know about this? And he had actually ordered the purging at NSA so that there'd be nothing there for anybody to find.
Kind of going to piggyback a little bit on Brooks, I think. Brooks, don't let me put words in your mouth, and I know you won't. But the issue is a lot of this is kind of old, and I'm trying to bring it forward here, and I'm trying to understand what is the intelligence community's motive. Is it arrogance? Is it trying to advance some American agenda?
No.
Is it infighting? I'm trying to figure out why there's this issue between the truth and what is the official story.
When you leave someone behind, like they did Scott Spiker, I'll bring it into more relevant terms for you here. And actually, also an AC-130 crew, BJ Dwyer, the whole bit. There's a whole bunch of them that are missing. It's not been accounted for yet. When I went to go talk about this with the Senate Intelligence Committee members, they were already looking at these other cases because they knew that it was bigger than Scott Spiker. Scott Spiker was they could prove. And they had been asking some of the questions I was asking, but I was getting information and they weren't getting the information they wanted. So they had to see me. And then I was trying to tell them how to do it. But the whole thing about this, the bottom line is it's not about an American agenda. It has nothing to do with being an American or having any principles or moral code. This is not about that. You know, once you do what, if you're in the political establishment in Washington, D.C., and you've left somebody behind, it doesn't matter how many people you left behind, but once you've done that act, somehow they just can't back the truck up and make it a good news story and say, look, we got our people back. You know, the president has done that a number of times already, where he's first term, he brought back people in this term already. He's trying to get people back. There's this inability to go back and explain what they did in the first place, the decision mechanism in the first place. So when Cheney declares Spiker basically dead without giving him the year and a day he deserved, because, you know, in the service, you're supposed to give him a year and a day to prove under no uncertain terms that person is gone, or you have reason to believe that he is. We changed the playbook with that because of what happened to him. But essentially, this is about people making mistakes. We have I hate to say it this way, but we have an incredibly flawed education system in which people just don't know what they think they know about whatever it is they've been hired to do. And the intelligence services do not cross-train the people the way that they used to train them. When I was in the military, when I went into it, you were usually taught by somebody in a 3-letter agency to do certain tasks, you know, so you could learn and be used that way. There were a lot of officers who worked for the CIA as bureau chiefs. You had Chip Beck doing that overseas. He was a bureau chief for the CIA. You have a number of people who were at the time. They were, you know, professional officers, but this is not that even. I mean, this is not their level where this is happening. This is happening at a political class level where they've got some god awful secret about something they did. They want to keep that secret, and they'll do it at all costs. And it doesn't matter how many people they gave. I mean, Eisenhower had a number of options there. He could have gotten those people back from Russia. The easiest
they weren't even prisoners of Russia yet. They were prisoners of Germany.
And they crossed into Eastern camps, and took them.
When Russians went in, they freed them and then immediately imprisoned them in gulags.
They did it, and
they died there.
And they
never got them back.
And some of the best books to read about that are the ones that were written by people who did get out and came back and told the authorities who they saw there and who they were. And we never did anything about that either. But there's some kind of this lack of a challenge and lack of, you know, wanting to have the will to go and fix this.
Well, but it went deeper than that, because at the time Harry Hopkins was running the European theater, and he stalled Patton and those guys outside of Berlin for 6 weeks to let the Russians go in and secure Eastern Europe.
Yep.
Patton could have kicked them out. He was there early enough to do it.
Yeah.
But Eisenhower was the one that said, no, you stay back out of there. And he let the Russians set up that Iron Curtain that we, by the way, fought till 1991, that whole Cold War. And it was all because of Eisenhower. And all he had to do was go in there and remove the Russians and free those American soldiers, and a lot of them were pilots.
And they never did any of that. No, and it goes back to decades before that, and when the AEF went into Russia after World War One, that 1918, late 1918, 1919 time frame, and we lost. You're talking about hundreds of people. We're not talking about a small number. They
Right.
took all those groups from what they called the Unified Polar Bears out of the Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan, people with good technical skills, people who had even good labor skills because they worked in rubber plants and car factories and airplane factories and other things, and they knew stuff, and so they took them, and we never got them back, and so that's a more of a detail in the book, this new one I'm working on, because I think the documentation on that's gotten better. There's a lot of things that have been allowed to be seen now.
Diana West wrote American Betrayal, which was a fantastic book, very, very detailed about how the Soviets had infiltrated Washington, D.C.
They had.
And really exposed to Harry Hopkins, for me, opened my eyes about the whole thing. Harry Hopkins was an advisor to the president who was suffering from a slow advancing stomach cancer. He had worked late one night with the president on something, and he said, well, I guess I better be going. And Roosevelt said, well, listen, why don't you just stay here at the White House tonight? And he didn't leave for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Harry Hopkins ran the Pacific Theater and almost killed all those troops.
Well, and
European theater.
I did a book on Roosevelt a few years ago, actually many years ago now, but I saw that, and the books and things that were written of that period and everything that went on. You get it. You get the fact that he was running things. I mean, in that White House.
That's why they call him the co-president, and you can find a lot of letters that have the HH at the bottom of the letter.
You do, and but it's fascinating to me, the things that have been repeated and repeated and repeated over and over and over again. It's as if it would just, and then the documents have come out now, and there you can find them, and they weren't even out. Some of them were not even out 2 years ago. They've been declassified. And at this point, it's pretty shocking. Some of the things you see are like, okay, that's not good. And I was telling Chad, it's because you got 20 somethings now declassifying for agencies, and they have no tie whatsoever to anything before they were born, basically. And they don't care. They're looking at it and we'll just, declassified. Not even redacted a whole lot, little things. And if you're like me, I can read right through a document if there's a couple of redactions and tell you what it says, because it's just it's a matter of course. But it's interesting to see. I took up the second book now on this issue because Luck Patterson came to me with his brother's files, James Kelly Patterson, and Navy pilot, and Luck brought, I would say, that box he brought with him on the plane. He had everybody making sure they watched the box for him. He didn't want it out of his eyesight, so the flight attendants let him sit it in the back of the plane. It weighed about 60 pounds. And he brought it to my house. He rented a car. He did the red eye here, brought it to me. It's everything he had on his brother, and he had tracked him down to Kazakhstan, where they took him out. He was an A6 VA-35 Black Panthers. He was the BN in the shoot down on May 19th, 1967. And the Czech General Seja, he actually said he was involved until he got out of Czechoslovakia in the Prague Spring the next year. And he said, yeah, all these guys, they came through, went through Prague, and he said also it would have been East Germany. A couple other countries in the bloc would have taken them in and processed them back to the Soviet Union. It's a very interesting story that he passed all of his tests for that. So he worked for the DIA, by the way, and the CIA both.
Speaking of the CIA,
let's do it.
Rahman, I don't want to use his whole name, but this Rahman that ended up shooting these two
Oh yeah.
National Guard people in Washington
Mhm.
D.C. drives all the way all the way across the country to do this. So it turns out that he is a CIA asset. That he
Mhm.
killed people for the CIA in Afghanistan.
Mhm.
So all I really want to know, I mean, I've heard the story 6 ways from Sunday. Everyone has. What I want to know is who gave him the order.
I would say somebody had to. That is definitely not an isolated where he did it on his own. It's
No,
not.
you have a
It's
mental
not.
problem.
He would have spent hundreds of dollars and just to drive there like he did or whatever he did to
Right.
get there. He didn't fly. Um, so he's probably still got a handler somewhere. I would imagine. Um,
If
those
you
kind of units are pretty close.
if you go back to the time when the trigger was pulled and Rahman gets in his car and begins his drive,
Yes.
it coincides with the recording and the publishing of the tape by the Seditious Six.
Mm-hmm.
It sure
So
does, doesn't it?
Slotkin makes this erroneous statement that National Guard people are going to start shooting civilians exactly 2 weeks before Rahman shoots these two
Right.
National Guards people.
They set things in motion.
They
Yeah.
set the whole thing in motion. And these Seditious Six, they need to have their homes raided and their phones and text messages and computers confiscated tonight.
Well, because he retired from the Navy, Mark Kelly is definitely in the crosshairs because he's eligible UCMJ, can be called back.
Yeah, but a couple of them are former CIA as well, and I
Yeah,
think the others are just patsies. But
that's going to be up to Ratcliffe too. He's going to have to figure out what he can do there. I mean, I don't know that I don't know if that just would go to DOJ or not. The CIA may have its own mechanism like the military does, but I don't think they do the way that the military does. But DOJ can certainly address it. They
don't
should.
get started with the DOJ. I think they've been, when it comes to actually taking out people that we've discussed for a year now, we call them the Dirty 30 or the top 300. I
Mhm.
think the DOJ is compromised.
I did make a point with Chad today, and I think it's an important one. And I know that this is a tack that you use when you're investigating a case, because I do it. But when I'm actually investigating something that I want to really get at, I don't telegraph where I'm going with it. I won't even say that I think that there's more people involved in something necessarily when I'm looking, because I don't want them burying what I'm looking for further. And if you really read the body language with Cash Patel and with Dan Bongino,
This is when we're,
Bongino in particular,
yeah.
because he's done so much media, um, I would say that there's a lot more to, for instance, the Butler shooter. There's more to this thing going on in D.C. There's Charlie
Charlie.
Kirk thing is another one. There's more to it than a single person involved.
Mhm.
And if you're really going to look at these things, and you want to be left in that space where you can actually get to the documentation, you can get to the people involved, you can trap the phones, you can do whatever you need to do to investigate. You're not going to get there if you telegraph what you're doing. And I would never telegraph what I was doing. When I did the Spiker books, I did 2 books on his case. I would never do that.
Amy, let me, so we don't keep everyone. It's not that we're keeping them in the dark, but we don't want to. So we want to shed light.
I just have a mild light on me in here. I'm sitting in the dark otherwise.
No, but okay. What I'm saying is when Amy was saying, we were discussing earlier this morning and everything, and Brooks, I brought up, because we were talking about obviously a lot of stuff, including extortion. That's when she gave me Colt's name, and with the after action report, and she told me exactly what happened in Daily Plaza. I'm just kidding, but I brought up Charlie, and I let her know that of course, a number of shows into post Charlie being assassinated, we obviously continued talking about it, and she brought up about obviously Cash and Bongino, and then that also reminded me of this first interview I saw with President Trump after Charlie was murdered, and he eluded without saying that there's that the it's not alone. There's other stuff going on. He
Well,
did it in an artful way. Is what I'm saying.
Well, he
And
did,
that,
and I would say too that the shooter in the Charlie Kirk case is not talking,
That's right.
and it tells me
That's
that
the
he's more
part.
afraid of the people who he's involved with than he is anybody prosecuting him for murder.
Amen.
yeah,
That usually is that to me is in reading something like that. That's just to me basically someone who when they don't talk, it's that kind of thing because they're in with a really bad crowd, and so to speak.
Unless they have tape of him actually taking the shot from the roof, which I doubt
Exactly.
they do, he's going to get off.
How could he not?
here's the thing. There is tape of what was on the
Yeah,
roof.
there is. So they got him on the roof.
Yeah.
They got him on the roof. They got his prints on the gun. They've got the whole thing. They got him hopping down. They've got him walking through a neighborhood. They've got the whole thing from
His gun. Of course, his prints are going to be on there.
No.
That's what I'm saying. That footage shows whatever was on the roof.
Yeah.
If the shot was even taken from there, but that's not being released because that's not the guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to go back. I want to go back real quick just to explain to the listeners, and I'll shut up. When Amy and I were talking about when she mentions Bongino and Cash, and then I mentioned President Trump, what she's explaining is a lot of people, those of us obviously who want the truth about let's say the Charlie Kirk, for example, a lot of us have been getting frustrated about Patel and Bongino and kind of tight-lipped and, well, wait a minute, you're just saying this is an open shut case, and what Amy and I were discussing is the fact that they as an investigator and an investigation, there's certain things behind the scenes that they cannot put out just yet.
And they won't, and they shouldn't. If you want the integrity of any investigation, you just can't. I mean, and Chad's heard me tell him that many times when we talked about certain things. If I was working on something I couldn't say. I mean, I've done a lot of cases over the years. My mentor had me working on lots of things over the years, and some of them actually reached to the FBI level because he had cases that he wanted me to work, and I had the skill sets for it, and I had the team for it, and so we used my group to do the work. But you don't talk about those things. You just can't talk about them even now. Because it goes to how we did it. And there are a lot of really bad things that go on all over the country, and some of them never rise to the level of one word in a paper or on a newscast. I mean, they have problems out west. They've had serial murders on the reservations, Indian reservations out west for decades now, and they get away with it. Nobody even utters a peep, but they have to bring the FBI into something like that, or they have to bring in people to solve those cases, and you never catch up with these people. And I mean, we're talking it's pretty bad. It's gruesome stuff.
Amy, am I naive to be optimistic at this point?
I think that we have the president who can get some things done here. I do that. I do think that. But the truth has to prevail in certain ways, and it has to be done effectively. When I write, I have to verify what I'm looking at. I have to know. I have to get down into it. It's like the little kid. I have to touch everything. I have to see it myself. I have to understand it. And if I don't understand, I have to ask a lot of questions. I drive people crazy doing that. but I need to understand it, and I need to understand it just as much for whoever's going to read that later or see it, hear me talk about it later, or just just from me. I mean, I have to know, and I have to be able to take it aboard. And I've seen some pretty bad things with this last project I'm working on, because it's just um there's a whole scope that nobody knows about. Let's just put it that way with
Would
this
would I
POWMIA business.
would I
That
be accurate if I described your perspective as being hopeful but not necessarily optimistic?
I I am not someone who would recommend anybody serve in the military right now, even though I've done it myself. My husband's done it. I come from a family of people who've done it. But it's not. Little did I understand when I initially thought, when I did the Spiker story, I thought maybe it was just something that was my generation. Maybe it was just something that had gone bad. It was, it was a few people. Oh no, no, no. I started going back further and further and further, and the further I went back, the worse it got, and then it rolled forward again. And I mean, we have people. I am optimistic that we can fix it if we have the information. That's the important thing.
Yes.
I mean, I think you can't fix what you don't know about, and and my job here is to fully educate and open the eyes of people to see that. I mean, when I say that there's a whole scope of this issue that has not come out yet, and I have, by the way, just so that every clear about this, I probably have just about every book ever written about a PWMIA case or anything to do with it. I even have things that nobody has, because I have General Giap's book from the Pavin, commander. I have everybody's books. I have a huge Russian collection, Soviet collection, and I know what's in all these books and what people wrote about, and everything. But there's another layer to this that goes beyond that. It's the ability to take those pieces of information and just put them together from not only the past, but how it's being applied in the present. And
Yes.
you have to make this relevant to get it fixed. And to do that, you do need to know about some of the things that have been done even more recently inside these agencies. Intelligence agencies, for one, they're very competitive. They don't work well together. They don't play well with each other.
That's
They
such a shame. That that
um,
that
Yeah.
is a shame.
it
That
it
is
it
a
has been the case.
pride. That's an arrogance issue, and they need to
Well,
recheck
re-
themselves and
well,
say,
rest assured,
"I'm a
it's not just
servant.
us.
I'm
The
I,
Russians have
I'm
the
a
same
All
problem.
right,
servant."
guys, we can't talk over each other over and over again.
I'm sorry, but we're a servant of the people, and that's a shame
Hmm.
that infighting occurs.
Well, and it goes on, and it goes on in all countries. I mean, you've got competitive agencies in Russia. You've always had that. There are some that emerged as a big dog, so to speak, as the years have gone on. The KGB never really went away. It came off of a pretty violent precursors. So it's a couple of phases before it got to be called the KGB. Then it has drifted into the new Putin era version of itself. It's never really gone away. And then you get their federal security, and you get everybody else involved and how they deal with various issues, including things that go on in Ukraine today, or things that go on internally in the country. The Chechens, what kind of relationship do you have with all these various sects within the country? Um, Same thing goes on in the Middle Eastern countries, France. I mean, all of them have competing interests. Um, but we do it at a great detriment to ourselves. And with 18 different agencies, that's too many. They need to pare down. Um, I think that would be the desire of Tulsi Gabbard, to do that, just to draw it down. You need to give the services back the ability to do more than maritime. So the Navy's been doing maritime information with their quote unquote intelligence. They need to be able to do full scope, and participate in that process. All the military do, to the betterment of their troops, wherever they may be. But they also need to have good insight into what information can be provided by the CIA, the NSA, the DIA. The most super secret agency we have in this country is the NSA, obviously,
Sure.
and and they protect things, to I mean, Secor's written about it before in his book about this thing. There's a couple of guys have written about the NSA and working there, and they managed to get the entire book published. It was amazing, and they're really interesting reads.
Go ahead, Brooks.
No, I totally agree. The NSA created out of the Patriot Act. The fusion centers that are put together are able to cross-reference incredible amounts of data. I think that when we get a president that aims that at civilians, we have a severe problem. The NSA could do a lot of good. It really could do a lot of good when it comes to undoing the bureaucracies, because this is where the major corruption is occurring in our country. USAID and all the NGOs and all the NSA has all the skill sets to find out where that money came from, where it's going to. When you have a judge's wife or a judge's daughter that runs an NGO, and he's in charge of suing President Trump to make sure the money keeps going to that NGO,
Right.
that's right down the NSA's alley. That's exactly what they should be able to do. They should be able to track the money, where it came from, where it went to, who got paid it. They should be able to grab the cell phones, all the contact information, because 20, 30, 50, $100 million is a lot of freaking money.
Yep.
A lot of down ballot campaigns.
Yeah.
Look at this lady that stole $5 million of FEMA funds to fund her campaign. Why is she not forced to resign like 45 minutes later?
Yeah.
Why is that not happening? Oh, that's right, because she's black. You see, the NSA has tremendous power, and they could lay the cards right out there, and the people would be with them all the way. They've got to go after the bureaucracies. This rule by bureaus that we have in our nation today has to end. It must end.
Yeah, it does, and it's costing people their lives. I mean, it's overseas. There's so many things that happen, and it's a matter in moments they have that information trapped. Moments,
Yep.
and I was writing the other day. There's some research that came out that has not been really well known, and apparently there was an execution message sent out by they had this thing back in the Vietnam era, and it's not unusual to see this happen. But if an anti-aircraft unit lost somebody significant in their hierarchy and their structure, if we bombed, and they died, they apparently the next pilot of ours that got shot down, they would just shoot him in the head. They wouldn't try to take him prisoner; they just shoot him.
Right.
And then they don't tell you what happened to the person. So anyway, so the NSA trapped this message that said they were going to execute 10 Americans. It was 1972, and they were going to shoot them, and they gave a time frame, they gave where it was going to happen, and everything else. Well, they transfer the message back to Fort Meade, and they insisted that the chief linguist, Vietnamese linguist, be the one who reviewed the message before they spit it back out to the DOD. The guy was late coming back to lunch, and the execution happened while he was at lunch.
Yeah.
And it was a legitimate message. There's another thing too. There's a lot of fine points in intelligence work, obviously, that matter. And explaining this again is information that people need to understand. When you're trapping messages like NSA does constantly, you have to determine whether it's a dummy message versus the real deal. And they are so good, they can actually do that within moments. So they had actually verified the execution message was real because they were listening that closely. They could hear at that time frame, because we had a lot of concern about who else was in these areas directing them against our aircraft. the Russians were right there. They could hear them talking behind the crew and telling them what to do. Um, they had verified. So, but one of the things that there's that good at is being able to determine that within moments. In fact, when they send flash traffic out, it has to go out within a minute, and can be no longer than 10 minutes before it would hit the president's desk. That's how important and how fast they can actually determine information.
Wow.
You know what? Let me piggyback on what everybody's saying. Just let me catch a ride real quick. Um, so Brooks brings this up about the bureaucracies, and I know we talked to Brooks. I don't know, maybe a month and a half ago, something like that, when the Supreme Court, under basically President Trump, he's a genius. Just the way he handled Dylan Mulvaney. No, that's not his name. The guy, the mayor guy in New York, Mondavi.
Oh, man, Danny.
Yeah, I mean, let's come back to that in just a moment. But just the way he handled that, he's just a master at putting it out there and letting people take the bait. And this one, I forget which bureaucracy she's the head of now, but we talked about it, and she took the bait, and because 47 fired her, tried to fire her, and her lawyers said Humphrey's executor from 1935. And that's what he wanted, because then the Supreme Court now in next month is going to take up Humphrey's executor, and they're going to get rid of it, meaning no longer can all these heads of NGOs, bureaucracies,
independent agencies,
there you go, not be fired. The executive office will now once again have the power to get rid of these people who are heads of bureaucracies, and that's cutting the head off the snake. It's a huge move for this country to finally not be controlled by the bureaucracies. Who controls the bureaucracies? We talk about it, the global syndicate, the New World Order. This is a huge win for the United States of America as far as being free and independent, as President Kennedy once said in a speech before he was taken away from us.
Democrat John F. K. said, I couldn't agree more. And
getting rid of Humphrey's executor is incredible, and this happens in December. So just pay attention to that, because it's absolutely
along with
important.
half a dozen other significant rulings. And Brooks, I'm going to tail on something we've been talking about for weeks, if not a month or more, is that...
And then we'll get back to Dylan Mulvaney.
Yeah. Is that, the whole idea is that we would not even have a clue as to how much corruption there is in our government. And that's the only concern I have at this point is, holy crud. I couldn't believe
I haven't heard
that
crud in
we've
years.
gone from
that's a good one.
18 million people on Snap to 42 million on Snap in 4 years, and the issue is that the multiple of millions of people claiming SNAP benefits from multiple states. And I could go on, and I'm not. I'm gonna be quiet. But the issue is the amount of corruption, and I'm baffled. Is this inept? Was the Biden administration that significantly inept, or was it that significantly corrupt? And I think it's probably a combination of both, but leaning more towards the corrupt. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it's inept. I think that these people saw an opportunity to make themselves rich.
Yep.
They saw an opportunity to squirrel away a few $1 million here and there, and no one would notice. Or if anyone did notice, it would be a damn thing they could do about it.
Right.
And they get away with it. These down ballot races, we've always been confused about it, that these people don't run campaigns. They don't get out and knock on doors, and yet they win. And we wonder, how in the hell do they do it? Well, they buy counterfeit ballots. Counterfeit ballots run anywhere from $20 to $100 a piece. It depends on where and what sequence they're in. The First of all, the official paper has to be stolen.
Mm-hmm.
That has to be paid by somebody. There's people that make the paper, and they sell the paper to legitimate contractors.
Yep.
Then the ballot has to be printed. It has to be printed with the votes in it and a legitimate voter's address and name and everything on that ballot. Well, they get that from lists that they buy. Just like you go buy a mailing list, they buy
Yep.
these lists too. So, like for instance, in Arizona, when they needed about 32,000 of these made at the cost of about $60 per ballot, do the math. That's about $1.8 million that they
Mhm.
have to put together. Where does that money come from? Well, it comes from these dirty accounts. And they
George
buy the ballots.
Soros.
Those ballots are delivered to the counting station and they run through the machine and they're counted. And that's why the audits work out and everything. But the trouble is, these mail in ballots have no envelopes, they have no creases, they've never been folded, they've just run through the printer.
They have perfect filled in circles
And they're
that
identical.
don't go a little bit inside or a little bit outside.
We had citizen reporters in Phoenix, and we caught the white vans that were going from the printer to the
Yep.
counting station for about 3 days. We were trying to find them, and then we found them, and we followed them in a car. It wasn't me, but it was another citizen reporter that shares information with me. They filmed it, they photographed it, they called 911, and they tried to get the cops to pull over that van. They had the license and everything. Pull over that van, and had counterfeit ballots in, and the cops refused to do it.
And that's
Yep.
what needs to change.
Yep.
That we need to swing the tide to say, you know what, that's outside my lane. That's
Yep.
and I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic that the tide is turned. If you want to use Charlie Kirk, turning point, that I think, Brooks, you described a month ago, that, all different cultures and civilizations go through these 4 or 5 steps. And
Yes,
one
four
of them is going from, the idea of trying to allow the system to work to revolution. And you, I think, very accurately, and as I continue to look and reflect, are very correct, is that, we're still in the issue of giving the system an opportunity to address this issue, but we're on the tipping point, the turning point, right? Of saying this needs a revolution. This
Yeah, well,
needs a
we
change.
talked about mercy, peace, justice, war.
Right.
Mercy, peace, justice, war. This is the cycle that society goes through. And right now we're in the justice phase. People are in a peaceful society clamoring for justice. We want to see this class of people who walk through the law like it doesn't affect them.
Yeah.
We want the law to apply to them. We want justice. And
Mhm.
if we don't get justice, the same thing happens over and over again. If we don't get justice, we go to war. War is just a step in the justice phase. It means, okay, cops can't do it, judges won't do it. we will do it ourselves, and we go to freaking war.
Yep.
And we're in that phase with Dylan Mulvaney right now.
I
I'm gonna.
feel so sorry for him. I really do. He cut himself up, and he had this idea. He's a great actor, and
Yeah, he is.
and he put himself out there as a preteen girl in a bubble bath drinking beer, and society rejected it. Society rejected it. We said that's not our Bud Light.
So did Kid Rock.
Beer. We don't want a 12-year-old girl in a bathtub in a bubble bath with beer. That's not right. We rejected it.
Kid Rock rejected it hardcore.
Oh yeah.
I keep, I'm bringing up Dylan Mulvaney because I'm just joking around. I can't remember Von Dommy's name, whatever the F his name is.
In New York.
But Amy and I were talking this morning, Brooks, and yeah, New York, the mayor elect of New York City. But Brooks, I mean, when Amy and I were talking, and Keith, when Amy and I were talking about this, I couldn't wait to get your take on this, Brooks, because Amy and I saw the same thing that the MSM totally did not see.
They never see anything anyway.
Well, I'm a little worried about it that we're trying to make out socialism to be a bad thing, but I looked at the recent poll, and 49% of those people polled did not see socialism as a bad thing. And when questioned about it, like, what makes you say that? They go, well, just look at Denmark, look at Sweden. Well, yes, those are socialist systems, and yes, those are very happy people, and it's a peaceful society, and there's free healthcare and free education and blah blah blah, with 65% taxes. I don't think villainizing socialism is going to work in these midterms. I think they have to do something else. They have to approach this, and we don't have much time to educate the populace about how bad socialism really is. We've got to win over this electorate.
That's tough. I'll be honest. That's a tough sell.
Well, again, that's to Charlie Kirk's death came at the worst time, and he was attacked, I think, in this case, because he was a big threat, and very much what Brooks is saying. He had a communication level with people, especially young people, who would believe the garbage about socialism or communism or whatever they're being asked about. But he was a decided threat to getting towards these midterms, and he was out there on college campuses like he was doing that day, and he was starting in a whole new phase of doing this communication and getting all these turning point chapters started. And I think it backfired on the people that did this because I think that movement is growing faster than he would ever probably done it when he was alive. But
they Obi-Wan him. Plain and simple.
It became a polarizing event for sure.
It really did, but I think that's why they killed him, and so they perceived him as a big threat.
Right, exactly, because he went into the lion's den.
He did. In
an area where they're spending tons of money to indoctrinate young people and have them come out as socialists.
Yep.
He went into the lion's den and he took on all comers about all things socialism, and I think about
was winning.
Yeah, well, he wasn't winning the debates. I will say that. I watched at least 200 of his debates. The people that would walk up to the microphone never had their hearts changed, but the people around them did.
Which was tenfold.
Yeah, they were registering as Republicans because they got what was going on. They could see how wrong the argument was, and they were registering as Republicans.
And that was his point, that was what he was trying to do.
That's right.
And the other thing too that I find it really interesting, that in our own federal government and our own DOD, our own intelligence agencies, back when they were trying to discredit the Soviet GRU document, the 1205 document, they went to every Maoist, communist, socialist professor they could find to do it. and how funny that they would have them all on speed dial, at the time. I mean, I'm just like,
Huh.
and if you really look at this, it's pretty, infiltrated the government. Yes, they're there. They're all through.
Sure. And if you go back to Mao and watch what he did with his society, his great leap forward, he divided his people. He divided people into those that were with the government and those that were against the government. Only his tactics were a little worse. The
Yeah.
people that were against the government, he killed them.
Yes. Yes. And actually, the communist system is very big on proselytizing units, and they've used them in every war against us where we've been in their territory, but they use them extraterritorially too to infiltrate everything from education. We're talking the education
Production.
to production, to government. And in fact, I told Chad this morning, I said one of the things that I don't think the public is really aware of is that when the concern about somebody who's been a prisoner of war, and I happen to agree with this. If you've been a prisoner of war, you really don't belong anywhere near the levers of power or anywhere in it because once you're broken in that system, there is something about you that's fundamentally changed. It's never going to be right about any decision making mechanism that's going forward. And they were so worried about these guys coming back from Korea and Vietnam and some other things. They did not let them take orders. If they stayed in the military, they did not let them take orders that put them extraterritorial from the United States on foreign orders or have any command initially for at least 18 months to 2 years. They were that afraid that they had been turned.
Yeah.
And honestly, there's so many examples that you can point to of people who have been in these positions, um, and you can see it. They don't belong there. They never belong there. They should never have been in that situation.
Well, there's a class of people today, and I've met them in their 30s or to their late 30s. I would say not over 40, but in their 30s to their late 30s. They honestly believe they will never own a home, that a home will always be out of reach for them, and so they don't think anybody should have a home. In fact, I've heard their anger at us, the boomers, because we fucked it all up. We made it impossible for them to buy a home. We got all the good stuff, and now we're
Cost of education, for one, is really
inflating the price of everything so we can be rich, and they can't buy a home. They can't afford the down payment. And you go and look at their reasoning, like from 1985 to 2005. Homes went crazy, but from 2005 to 2025, absolutely insane. We're talking 175% increases in prices of homes. People that bought homes.
My two daughters pay over $2,000 a year for a pretty nice apartment, 2-bedroom, 2-bath here in Jacksonville. Not the
$2,000 a
highest,
month.
not the highest,
Jacksonville?
not
Wow.
the
$2,000 a
highest
month.
cost living place in America. They both are single. They both have good jobs. They can afford it. But I mean, yeah, there's something there. I hear you, Brooks.
I think first of all, the price of an education in this country has gone absolutely out of the universe. I
Totally
mean,
agree.
these kids they've got debt of $100,000 or more when they come out of school, and you can't buy. There's
Double,
certain lenders that won't let you
triple
buy a
that.
house.
Double,
It
triple that.
well, it is. I mean, if it depends on if you go to grad school, you go to med school, you go to law school, whatever you're going to do. I have a sister who's a physician up in Philadelphia, and she's been doing this for a long time now. But when she first tried to buy a house, they wouldn't let her buy a house because her debt was still over $200,000. They weren't going to do that, so she had to get it down to 100,000 or 150,000, somewhere along that range, in order to buy a house. She finally did, because her practice, did really well. Then she could do that, but but the point of it is that not everyone's able to do that, and they carry these debt loads for the rest of their lives, pretty much.
But it goes back to the price of housing. He's talking about apartments. I mean, it was 10 years ago. The same apartment in Jacksonville was $1,000. Now it's 1,800, two
You
Yeah.
thousand
can
dollars.
still you can still get an apartment in Norfolk, Virginia for $750 a month.
Canton, Jacksonville. I
Wow.
mean, not
And
Cheers.
I think
not
we have
not
a
in a reasonable, you know,
You
not in. I
you,
mean,
you can get
1,500,
a
nice
studio.
1,800.
nicest part of Norfolk downtown. You can get an apartment for that in this Ghent section we have here. And they that's considered and then it goes up to whatever you want to pay. I mean, there's all kinds of housing inventory here, but I mean, I think it's just too much that the every person I know who's a young person, like you're saying, Brooks is saying, is that they've all got this debt from whatever, the college, tech school, whatever they've gone to. And not everybody needs to go to college. I mean, they can go to tech schools, they could go do trade schools, any number of things that would be more lucrative.
That's what they're doing here in Charlotte. Is especially in Hickory area, the trade schools are really, really becoming top notch.
Yeah.
Not just welding, but computer programming, radiology, all kinds of stuff. And you come out of those schools with 25,000 in debt, and you're making 80,000 a year.
Yeah.
Amen. I mean, Amy, the issue is I can only in your book address the things that I firsthand knowledge. I can acknowledge your first paragraph in your book,
Right.
An American in the Basement. I can tell you firsthand that's exactly. I mean, with it, I couldn't describe it more. Your first paragraph about small groups and prayer, knowing what was going on.
Yep.
And the issue is that I can tell you, I've taught math and science, physics, chemistry,
That is the biggest
Algebra
asshole
1.
cork I've ever dealt with. Go ahead.
Algebra 1, geometry.
Holy shit.
The whole issue is that, as we go forward here, is hey, what is realistic? And I got my kids are 25 to 30. Those were the age of my children. And they're dealing with this issue of rent and owning a home and that kind of stuff. And it's a real challenge and those types of issues. And there's a lot of things. I mean, the apartments they're looking at are much nicer than the apartments and things that we looked at and those things. And so I don't know how we win that argument with that 15 to 35-year-old. I mean, it's going to take a lot of focused, dialogue to say, hey, listen, man, you do not want this socialist issue.
It's working fundamentally though, I think, with them in terms of where it's how to put it, I have one living in Charlotte, so Charlotte's expensive. I know that part. The oldest
Yes.
one we have lives in Charlotte.
North Carolina?
Yes.
Well, Brooks is in Charlotte
Brooks
right now.
lives there.
Brooks is in, and she lives downtown, so she likes to be around where she can walk and do whatever downtown. Charlotte's a neat place. But I think that it's getting also young people to accept the choices they make and the responsibilities they have made in life. You can't when I was growing up, it was very clear to me. It was always made very clear. You make this choice. This is your choice. You have to understand it. You have to think about all the different aspects of it. Look at the edges, lift the edges, understand what's going on. What are you going to do with, if you're going to go get a degree here or here, what are you going to do with it? It's we still have a problem too in the country where, believe it or not, they are teaching at we've got a young submarine officer living behind us now who went to the same college that my husband did in New York, the SUNY Maritime. And so it turns out they were teaching some woke thing about movie classes or something like that here. That's insanity. This is New York Maritime. This is supposed to be like the Coast Guard Academy or the Merchant Marine Academy, and they have actual courses and things that you can almost major in with this stuff. And you're thinking to yourself, that has nothing to do with the mission of the school,
Exactly.
Right.
nothing. And so and he's a submarine officer, they don't need to be. I mean,
I,
um,
I had a manager I worked for in manufacturing now, automotive part manufacturing, and his degree, he had to have a degree to have this position. His degree was in Middle Eastern studies.
oh God,
He knew dick about manufacturing,
right.
and we were so frustrated with him, so frustrated.
And we need to have these discussions again. This is what Charlie Kirk was doing. He was having discussions with young people about choices, about
Yeah,
the things that they decided to do in life. Now we have our kids understanding that they make these choices, and at a certain point, I mean, sure, mom and dad can bail them out of certain things and help them out with things here and there. Everybody does that. I mean, you help them out, do what you can. But then there's a certain level where the choices they make have got to be theirs. And if they're not theirs, they're never going to get through whatever it is in life that goes well past our lifetimes with them. They need to learn to make choices.
yeah. We just want those choices to be informed.
They do.
Exactly.
I mean,
We
Yeah.
we need more welders than we need philosophers.
exactly. And
Ed Brooks, I'm going to follow up on that. I mean, listen, I'm in the front lines. I mean, I teach high school math.
oh God,
And before and before that, I taught high school chemistry and physics, and I've done it for 18 years.
Yeah.
And I'm
And
gonna
you're
tell you
safe
some of the biggest arguments I've had is with some of the guidance counselors
yeah,
and or admin
No kidding.
about
Yep.
we have Tulsa Welding School a mile from our school. And they will go and they will appropriately, correctly take students on field trips 3 miles down the road to the State School of University of North Florida. And it's a wonderful school. I have a master's degree, right, in business administration from there. And I can't, it's a wonderful school. But you got to recognize half of the senior class is not going to graduate with a 4-year degree from that school. And half of the class or part of the class could be an electrical engineer, solar panels, actual welding, and make more money than me as a teacher or them as
yeah.
a guidance
Absolutely.
counselor. And I tried numerous times to take field trips to those trade schools and was absolutely denied.
You were shot down, weren't you?
Absolutely. We want every student to have the opportunity to go to a 2 or 4 year school and to be a college graduate. And I get that. But they're barely getting through
Oh yeah.
high school.
Yeah.
The issue is that academia is not their thing. Let's
No,
help
it's
them.
not for everybody.
Let's help them be a welder and earn 30 or 40 or $50 an hour, right? And be successful
Yeah.
in those trades, or be an electrical engineer, or install solar panels on roofs here in Florida.
I can tell you right now, one of the highest paying trades, because it's governed by license here in North Carolina, is plumber.
I was going to say,
Amen.
portion. They do really well. They do well here.
Applying
Rough in a house.
to PVC pipe and connecting sinks and toilets and drain lines and showers and right?
Yeah.
Or I don't care, laying tile or laminate or carpet,
Just don't say painting the inside of a house because it's the
finishing
most,
concrete.
it's the
Oh
most
my gosh.
painting.
There's tons of things, and they all make good money at it.
Yeah.
There's a guy that did all the concrete work on our house recently, and that guy had his own company, did his own thing. He had, that guy made a fortune. He had just as nice a house as anybody who's the
The
Millionaire Club
nicest,
downtown.
the nicest trucks and trailers we see in the city are
Yeah.
landscapers.
Yeah,
Yes.
they have companies that do really well. I mean, they pick up, they do all kinds of things from corporate parks to individual houses, and they do really well at it.
Just don't. I mean, I know, but I'm just saying, painting the inside of a house is the most boring fucking shit I've ever done. I've worked with a buddy of mine. He owns his own business and he does very well. But I've helped him out numerous times. We went to Cocoa Beach and painted this entire condo for 2 days, and it was 12 hours. The most mundane. I couldn't listen to enough Alex Jones. I mean, I ran out of shit to listen to because I'm just sitting there painting the inside of this condo for 12 hours every day, and I'm like, this is horrible. But yes, they make good dough.
Right. And,
Keith, I
I'm
gotta say something.
absolutely the newest new Bob person on this show. But I continue to say is, hey, listen, I mean, the idea is that we're trying to give opportunity and truth to people. And the idea is that, if success is being happy with what you do, and if you're doing the most mundane painting of the
Hey,
inside,
painting is boring as fuck, and it's plain simple.
right? But if you do it and you do it well,
Everybody
and you
wants to
make
do
a
it.
decent living, right? And you're not trying to keep up with the Jones, and you are the most blessed person in the world to
Hey,
be
dude,
able to do that.
you roll out a wall for 12 hours. I'm just saying. I'm just making a point, but I'm with you on that, Keith. You
Yeah,
make a great
no,
point
I
there.
agree.
Listen, I'm going to hammer this home, Brooks. I want your opinion before we get out of here and stuff.
Okay.
Because, like I said, Amy and I were talking about it earlier this morning, and we both agreed when Dylan Mulvaney, I'm just kidding, when Mondavi was in the White House, okay, 47 is such a boss, such a power move. He knows how to F him up, and he totally effed him up. The MSM had some weird ass take on it, but the real take is he had him standing at his side while he sits at the desk, and he totally made him look like a fool.
It was great. It's the expression on the president's face that I loved the whole time. He was letting him, oh, you can call me a fascist still if you want. I loved it. It was just great. The 40 chest was in full form there.
Yeah, you saw that, Brooks, I think.
Yeah. POTUS knew two things. He knew the governor wasn't going to give him any money, and he knew he wasn't going to give him any money.
Yeah.
They can't. They don't have money to give.
Well, I know, but the point is he made the mayor-elect look like a fucking buffoon.
Yes.
Good.
That was the point of it.
I mean, hey, that's a traditional saying about socialism is at some point you run out of other people's money to spend. And
Yeah.
New York is already at that point.
Oh yeah. Listen, and my entire point of me driving that home was, once again, 47 is just on it like a hornet all the time, and he brought him to the White House to make him look like an idiot. And to the point of Charlie Kirk, and as far as the midterms, Charlie's done his work.
Yes.
Charlie's woken so many people up. I don't think this weird thing about it's just the MSM saying midterms. I don't think the midterms are going to be some type of all of a sudden a backlash against MAGA. I think the country is already awake and they're not buying the bullshit from the MSM anymore.
Let's hope
They had the
so.
poll again
Let's
this week
hope so.
of Republicans that would vote for Trump again. 87%.
Yeah, that's higher than Obama and
Absolutely.
Jorge
And anybody
Bush.
before, yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, Charlie did great work, and his work continues. I mean, and Amy brought it up. All those chapters after they Obi-Wan Kenobi them,
Yeah.
it just woke more people up.
Sure.
So
It became a huge movement. The way it just woke it woke everybody up because the people who hadn't heard him before, listened to him before per se, they were then, they have since.
yeah, damn straight. You know, so so going back to Keith talking about, and even me, but Keith brought it up most recently. Listen, there used to be a time. Not really, Chad. Yes, there used to be a time. There used to be a time where you could call me pessimistic about certain things because I wanted results right away when I started doing this show. You know, when I started doing this show, in my mind, I come on the radio and I'm gonna get the truth about 9/11 out. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that.
Everybody's gonna listen in.
Yeah.
Everybody's gonna fall in line.
And then I realized, holy shit, that is just not reality. You know, but we are in a different time now than 2009 when this show started, and Brooks has been with this show since 2009. I mean, we've come a long way.
Yes.
We for the first time in my life, we have a real president of the United States, not a puppet of the United States, and the country's so far different. Like, for example, if I started this show right now versus in 2009 when we were doing the whole terrestrial jazz, I wouldn't have anyone calling in disagreeing with me. You know, because now people are like, yeah, man, I think kind of understand the existence of this whole global syndicate or New World Order. Yeah, there's a lot of questions about 9/11, Extortion 17. There's a lot of questions here. Instead of you're an idiot.
Exactly.
You know, you're a batshit crazy kooky conspiracy theorist. No, there's people you talk to them about 9/11 and they're like, yeah, I don't really. I mean, they understand that you're not crazy for wanting to to investigate it, to look into it. So we've come a long way, is all I'm saying. The country has, and a lot of that goes to damn straight to Charlie. Credit to him, but also credit to everyone doing worker in the light type stuff, the yeoman's work, Dr. Brooks Agnew, you know, anybody, any of us doing these shows, writing books, researching, being out there anywhere. G. Edward Griffin, you know, it's so many people for a long time, and it's all coming to fruition, and I think on purpose, in my opinion, and we were talking about that with Butler earlier, Amy, and I've said it on the show over and over again, but I told Amy this morning, you know, it's on purpose that President Trump is here. It's on purpose. It's providence. That's why they couldn't kill him in Butler. Because the countries go, hey, we're coming to the 250th birthday because we're supposed to be here, and President Trump's supposed to be here.
Right.
And stuff is changing for the better. And I'm going to be the optimistic person instead of the pessimist that I kind of was when
I'm
the show
glad.
started.
I've been an optimist for a while, and I'm interested in Brooks. Brooks, although you look 10 years younger than I do.
He wants to ask you out.
And though you look 10 years younger than me, I'm interested in your perspective. Are you optimistic, neutral, or still kind of pessimistic?
No. I'm definitely optimistic. I think that when people are empowered with knowledge, they tend to make the right decisions. When they have, I want to use the word misinformation, but that's been abused kind of. When the truth is withheld from them, and all they really have is indoctrination. They don't tend to make very smart decisions. They don't understand what socialism is, that it's just a fuzzy dice on the communist tanks. They don't understand that not owning your own path is a curse to slavery. You
Yes.
must own your own path forward, regardless of what it is, failure or success. And if you don't risk anything, you're not gonna gain anything. But the idea is every single day to get more knowledge and to get smarter. And I'm saying that kind of tongue in cheek because we have a lot of pretty well-to-do white under 35-year-old educated people who are making the wrong decision. They have been indoctrinated in school. They think the government should be there to take care of them, that there's more than a safety net. I should be able to pursue my life's dream, and I shouldn't have to worry about rent or food. That should be just guaranteed, and free energy as well. And it's just not reality.
No, it's not.
I tell you what, guys, this is Amy. It was great having you on. It's been a long time, so I want to do it again soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've enjoyed it.
Heck yeah. It's been a
Yeah.
great show. Both you guys just stay with us as we do our outro and everything. But Amy, tell everyone how they can get an American in the Basement. Any information you want to get out to everyone.
You can actually get American in the Basement on Amazon. If you go to Amazon, you can get it there. You can also get it from the publisher. I'm revamping that book for the movie, so I'll be doing another version of it and adding to it some things that I've found out since. I'm always looking. You have to keep looking. And I found some other things that are very interesting about the case. But they can get it there. Pretty much, and going forward, I'll keep you up to date where we are with the movie. We'll have trailers. They call them sizzles. We'll get the sizzles first, and then you'll be able to see what that's all about.
I can't wait for the movie. I can't wait for the movie too. I tell you what, Dr. Brooks Agnew, the most interesting man in the world. If they go to brooksagnew.com, what are they looking for?
Well, two things. Of course, you can get my any one of my 8 bestsellers. We're trying to get the Birth Trilogy made into film. We're going to make another run at it this next year. We didn't make the cut last year. We were the 3rd on the list, and they only took 2 series to be made into movies, but we're going to try again next year. But you can also get ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine for yourself, and fenbendazole as well. We are making some changes with our supply chain. So instead of taking 4 weeks, we think we can get it out in 10 days. This is a huge, huge improvement. So please visit the website. Make sure at this cold and flu season that you have the cure in your medicine cabinet.
Dr. Brooks Agnew. So you can go to brooksagnew.com. Amy Waters Yarsinske and Brooks Agnew, guys. Great show, and we're going to do our little outro here, and we'll say goodnight as we do our outro.
There you go.
I want to for our elusive engineer, webmaster, and producer Tony, the greatest producer on the planet, the Sentinel, and of course Scott Hare, Adam Earth, and the luscious Bob Austin, folks. And you just heard Keith Temple. Until next time, let justice be done till the heavens fall. I'm Truth. This is the one and only Earth. Amy, Brooks, you guys have a great night, and Keith's gonna dance for you.
I'm working on my 47, 45. He got me beat, but I'm working on it.
Get down with the get down, Keith. Hey, good night, guys. Love you all, and talk to you all soon.
Amy, nice meeting you tonight.